Hey guys, welcome to another top 10 list. Welcome to my welcome to my top 10 underrated superhero movies. My last video did the overrated, which was the fun one. Time for the underrated, which is the fun one for some people. Underrated superhero movies, this is so hard to weigh because there are some movies that are like really well praised, but no one talks about them anymore, and no one has ever seen them and stuff. And there are ones that don't get a lot of praise, but people have seen them, but they just don't think it's as good as it should be, but it should be that good. So there's a lot of ways to justify underrated. So it's very hard. It's very hard. Like I was gonna put like Unbreakable on this list, and if this was 15 years ago, I would, but Unbreakable now has like this like huge following, especially because of Split and Glass and stuff. I don't think it's underrated anymore. It's a great movie, but a lot of people know Unbreakable and they love Unbreakable, and just it's a movie everybody talks about, and just like, okay, it's not really underrated anymore. And I was even gonna put Watchmen on here, but I think that one has also got more praise and more of a following, and just I don't think it's underrated anymore. It's again a great movie, but I just don't think it's in that underrated yet. So, yeah. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just winging this shit. So, let's get to it. And before I start with the top 10 list, I'm going to give one honorable mention to The Incredible Hulk. I don't think this is a great movie. I really don't. I think it falls apart in the third act. I think Edward Norton's a pretty good Bruce Banner. And I think the whole first act of the movie is fantastic. If that whole movie was like that first act, I think this movie would have been fantastic. Just him on the run against the government in these like different countries and stuff, barely turning into the Hulk. And I love that he turns into the Hulk. You don't see him as the Hulk. He like pulls guys into the shadows. It's like that fear of that unknown. I really love all that shit. I really do. And it feels like that old school show. You know, maybe not with the campiness, but like with him on the run against the government and stuff. So all of that I love. It's just when it starts like becoming a monster movie, I think the whole last like 25 minutes just loses it for me. I'm like, I don't care. It just kind of wasn't fun anymore and enjoyable. It turns into more of just like a bloated superhero movie. But I give it a lot of credit for not being like a Marvel movie where it's like comedy throughout the whole fucking movie. It's actually a very serious movie. It's like an action thriller. So I give that, and I'll call it underrated because of all the Marvel movies that have come out now. I think this one is a lot more watchable than a lot of the new shit. So, yeah. Number 10, The Crow. The Crow also has a bigger following nowadays because everyone wants to see another Crow movie, and it's got Brandon Lee, the son of Bruce Lee, but I still think it needs more praise. There's still so many people who haven't watched this movie. There's still a lot of people who haven't experienced it, and it should be along one of the great superhero movies of all time. It's one of my all-time favorites. It is. It's a great movie to watch during Halloween because it's like a Halloween movie, and it's also a great, brutal, R-rated superhero film, man. It's fantastic. Number 9, Darkman. Darkman is directed by Sam Raimi, and it stars Liam Neeson. Another brutal, violent, dark, sort of like vigilante superhero movie. And again, one nobody talks about. And I get it. There's some cheesiness to it. There's some things that make no sense. And it has a shitty-ass villain. And it has a pretty underwhelming conclusion as well. But I like Liam Neeson. I loved it. It took a lot more risks. And I actually enjoy the story and how he becomes Darkman and how he punishes the criminals. I think it's pretty great. I don't think it's an amazing movie, but I still think it's enjoyable. Underrated for sure. Number 8, The Wolverine. Yes, not Logan. Great movie, but The Wolverine, directed by James Mangold, is so good. I think the movie that what he wanted probably would have been a better movie, because I know he wanted to make this an R-rated samurai movie. That would have been fantastic. I still think this movie's great, though. Again, like The Incredible Hulk, it falls apart in the third act, though. However, the reason I put this on the list is because I just think less people talk about this movie. And I still think the first 2 acts of this movie are better than the first 2 acts of The Incredible Hulk. The stuff about Wolverine and about, like, you know, the stuff with, Hiroshima and all the stuff when he was in the war. And him trying to deal with Jean Grey and helping this man that he helped a long time ago, and his relationship with his daughter, and the kick-ass samurai chick. I forgot her name. She's awesome, though. There's a lot of great story and a lot of great samurai action in this movie, and I really, really enjoyed this film. I think this movie is super underappreciated, and it's actually a movie I do watch every couple of years, and I'm like, it still holds up. It also has a very good score, too, so, yeah. All right, hold on a second. Fix that. Number 7, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. A movie that many, many, many people are not liking. They're like, no, they lost me. I'm like, why? If you like the first one, I don't think there's a reason to dislike this one. I actually think this one is funnier than the first one. For some bizarre reason. I think the first one is still a better movie. It has a better story. It has more emotionality. And I just like how they all, get introduced onto the screen and stuff. But I think this one is funnier. I think Yondu has got a great character arc. And I loved Kurt Russell in the movie as well. So, I don't know. People really hate on this movie now. I'm not one of them. Number 6, The Rocketeer. Again, another movie that's got more of a following because of Joe Johnston, and like a lot of people are more becoming like a fan of his directing, and they're checking out his previous films. And Rocketeer's always been a movie that people have said is underrated for like 2 decades now, 3 decades maybe, and more people are just watching it. And now Disney Plus, people can watch it now and experience The Rocketeer, Rick Secord and his amazing jetpack fighting Timothy Dalton. Super fun, super over the top. Fantastic. Maybe one day I'll put it off this list because more people will just have the love for it, but we need more love for The Rocketeer, so it stays on this. Number 5, The Punisher. Thomas Jane and John Travolta. Again, I don't think this movie is even that great of a movie. I just think it gets a lot of hate for no reason, really. It doesn't follow the Frank Castle story perfectly to a T, by no means. But it is a pretty good action movie, and I think Thomas Jane is actually a pretty good Frank Castle. I think John Travolta is a lot of fun as the villain, too, as this crime boss, as, what's his name, Mr. Saint? Yeah, Howard Saint. I love the Russian. I love some of the brutality of this movie. I think the whole massacre of his family is a pretty fucked up scene. I think there's a lot of good stuff. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't work at all. Like, at all. But I really like Thomas Jane. I like the brutality. And I love the soundtrack. This movie's got great music in it. So I think it deserves a little more respect. Number 4 is Batman, Mr. Freeze, Sub-Zero. A lot of people talk about Mask of the Phantasm, but nobody talks about Sub-Zero. This is a great animated movie that goes more into the depths of the villain of Mr. Freeze, probably my favorite Batman villain. Yes, not the Arnold one, but the one in the comics, and the one in the animated series, and the one in this film in particular. Because Mr. Freeze is more like an anti-villain more than like a villain. He's a villain, but he does have goodness in him. He's just so desperate to get his wife back because he blames himself for it. This is a great movie. It's a great Batman movie. It's got great dramatic scenes, and all the stuff with Robin is actually good too. And just watch this movie. If you like Mask of the Phantasm, you'll love this one. Number 3, we got V for Vendetta. Remember, the 5th of November. Another movie that's getting more love, getting more appreciation. What the Wachowskis did writing this movie, they did a great job. Hugo Weaving is fantastic as V. Natalie Portman is really solid. I think this is her best performance in a movie. And I'm not always a Natalie Portman fan, but she's great in this. It's a great movie about anarchy. It's a great movie about corruption in the government. It's a great movie of what can happen if the government has too much control on us. I love it. I think this movie is brilliant. And again, it gets love, just not enough love. So it's still underrated. And number 2, we're going to another animated Batman movie. That's Batman Beyond, Return of the Joker. This movie is incredibly good. The Batman Beyond television series as a whole is an underrated television show, but this movie itself is also very underrated. The diehard comic book fans know all about this movie and love this movie, but more people, more of the casuals, need to check this movie out. It's a dark, fucked up, crazy movie about Joker and how the twist on creating a new Joker, it's really well done. I don't want to spoil too much, but I gotta say, this movie will hook you in the first 15 minutes. If you're not hooked in the first 15 minutes, then I don't know what to tell you, but brilliant movie. Anyways, number 1, Blade 2. Blade 2 is one of my favorite superhero sequels. Everyone loves Blade 1. Like, Blade 1 is Blade 1. It's a fucking great movie. But a lot of people don't talk about Blade 2, Guillermo del Toro. This movie, actually, I think is better than Blade 1, to be honest. I think the action's great. I think the characters are great. It's more silly and over the top, but I kind of love that. It's more silly, ridiculous, and over the top. I think Wesley Snipes kicks ass. I think the villain is pretty fucked up. I think the ending is hilarious. I don't know. I love this fucking movie, and I always have more fun with Blade 2 than Blade 1, so I think it's one of the most underrated superhero movies. That's just my opinion, so let me know in the comments below what are your top 10 most underrated superhero movies. Comment below, let me know. And as always for this video, please like, subscribe to this channel, and join the dark side.